It's about the time to talk it out.
Let's talk, let's talk.
It's time to talk it out. It's time to talk it out.
Let's talk, let's talk.
You know it's time to talk it out.
Let's talk.
Hey, 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 and this is your boy Chill, and you are now tuned in to another episode of the one and only Talk It Out. Oh man, I feel great today. But I just wanted to, before I get all off into that, I want to bring on my co-host, the wonderful, all the way from Winnipeg, Canada, DJ Despair, and the one and only Hugh and DBoss, all the way from Toronto, Canada.
Hey, Chill.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Great, but we're not seeing Despair here.
That's all right. We're going to talk it out.
All right.
Well, today, everyone, we're going to start a new form of the segment, okay? What I want to do is that, I want us, you, DeBoss and Hugh and Despair, to start having more fruitful conversations. Hey, Despair. Fruitful conversations, about all sorts of different topics throughout the week. And say, per se, once or twice a week, we have a special guest come on. But I think that it would be a lot more enjoyable because, after all, we are talking out. To have us, do a little bit more talking it out amongst ourselves to venture into different topics, different things about what's going on in the world, And today, I wanted to kick it off with something very interesting, okay? And you guys are probably gonna look at me sideways like, But, I think that it's something that the parents at home and people really, really need to look at. And that is video games and their effect on our children today. Video games and their effect on our children today. Positive or negative?
Depends on the video game.
Helping our kids or hurting our kids? So, Despair, since you want to speak up first.
I'm just saying, depends on the video game.
Yes. Now, for instance, I'm going to bring up a game. And by the way, for clarification, these conversations have no type of negative or positive agenda towards the brand. We are merely talking it out. So now that I have that disclaimer done, Grand Theft Auto. Oh, despair.
I've been playing Grand Theft Auto since the first Grand Theft Auto.
Yes.
I don't know, but you see, the difference between that one was it was an upscale view where you were just running in and out of things and stuff. The way it is now, it has changed a lot. I don't recommend it for a lot of children to be playing it, but with the amount of TV shows and the stuff that we got going on in the world these days, it's kind of hard to desensitize that because you got Call of Duty, you got all the things that are in those same aspects of violence.
Yeah.
But this aspect, this is more of an adult video game, and I keep it on that level.
So then the question then lies, how can you separate adult video games from children video games when kids play more video games than adults?
Well,
what's going to stop them from buying it?
But how do you separate X-rated video movies to regular movies?
Well, they
Or
have
music,
on,
or
well,
even music.
and I get it, and I get it. They have a little censorship thing the adults can place on the Netflix and all that, where they have to punch in a code. At least they're doing that. I'm talking towards like with the video games, anyone can go inside the store and purchase it. Any kid,
I
grown.
know they actually have a different age genders and all. Like you have to be a certain age to get certain games. It does have restrictions on the games.
Really?
Yes, it does.
Well, I need to talk to some people out here because they show me. Maybe that's a Canada thing. I don't know, but
It's not a honestly. And then on top of that too, if the kids are downloading the game, that's another problem because if the parents are not being on it with that, that's where you don't. That's where you lose because you can just download the games now.
well, Hugh, do you think that there's some sort of agenda behind that?
Behind the video games in general?
Yeah, in its effect with the kids and all of that, and how our kids are growing up crazy, thinking that they're Max Payne or in Grand Theft Auto, going around shooting everybody, and stuff
Well,
like that.
I don't know if there's a major agenda behind it, although it could be just that, there's could be all kinds of negative consequences that aren't foreseen by the government, aren't foreseen by the companies making these games, and they don't really care about the long-term problems that they might create because they're just trying to sell video games. But one of the things that I've thought of is, especially with these shooter games or even the war games, is that now that in real warfare, and you were what were you in the Army?
In the Marine Corps. No, Marine Corps.
Corps.
Don't insult me like that.
Okay, so you've been in the actual armed forces, but I know that some of the military activity now is becoming more and more like a video game when you've got military personnel, say, controlling drones. You can do a lot of like drone warfare now, and the way it's headed is even with these like robots that can be sent into battle and there's no person there, but the robot could be being controlled by someone, a military, personnel sitting in a room somewhere with and it's like a video game. So it could be, this is kind of a surreptitious way of training the soldiers of the future.
What do you think, DBoss? What's your opinion on it?
Well, I think that these kids are today are so wrapped up in these video games, and they're, you can't even speak to them because they go and they get, I don't know, maybe it's 10 or 12 or 20 of them playing all at one time. And everybody, they're all coordinated, but yet still when you ask them to do things in the house or you ask them to do things to get, do things that are outside of it's like pulling teeth. You're like, what the, you can't even, they can coordinate to get all their friends coordinated on these video games. And then they can't even some of them can't even do their schoolwork properly. So, I find that they're very distracting and the kids are not really showing any type of creativity or imagination on their own. So,
yeah, you brought up a good point. Distraction, where, the kids are so busy playing the game and they're so focused on the game that the generation is sort of, I would say, dumbing down. You could say, like with GPSs nowadays. Back in the day, we didn't have GPS growing up. So you had to know where you were going. You had to know north, south, east, west,
get a map.
Right, a map, And it's like nowadays, you ask one of the newer generation to open up a map and they're looking at you like you're crazy. Like, what is that,
Like, what is that?
Right, So, that, and that's why, part of the reason why I wanted to discuss, the video game theory, because, it seems that there's so many different things happening in our world today that technology itself, it's like it's being used as a distraction for, in some cases, for, in lieu of the reality that's happening around us. Perfect example. In Grand Theft Auto, for example, okay, they have a lot of different scenes where people are taking drugs, people are doing all sorts of crap, right? And it brings about an element of, well, this is cool to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is the in thing, and it's just not, and I'm not talking about marijuana. I'm talking about cocaine, all sorts of different things like that, from selling the drugs, and things of that nature. So the question then lies, mentally, what type of effect do we really think that this is having on our kids? If you're walking into a room and your kid is on a video game selling 10 keys to a guy, okay? And then, and
It's just
then
a game. It's just a game.
It's just a game. But then 2-3 years later, he's selling keys to somebody for real. And you're wondering, what did I do wrong? Or he's cussing you out, you as the adult, he's cussing you out because he's seeing it on the video game, or all of his friends are doing it, or what have you.
But
it seems that it's going crazy. Go ahead.
Chill. Yeah. So it's not just video games either. I mean, it's like, and the world we grew up in it was very different from the world our parents grew up in.
Yeah.
Too, right?
Yep.
And we had TV was a big influence on us, and a lot of that programming that we sat through was stuff that people a couple of generations previously would have thought, oh my God, what's happening to the whole culture, right? So that it just seems that whole thing has continued, and not just TV either. Like, chill, even the music, right? Even some of the guests that we've had on the show here, just the message that's going out in their music is what kind of message is that sending to the culture in general, right?
Yeah. And by the way, this episode is brought to you by Mobbed Up Water. Nothing against our sponsor, but Mobbed Up, that's another, I mean, you have a lot of messages that are being sent out that a lot of times I don't think they're intentional, but people are thinking about the money instead of thinking about the long-term effect that it's going to have on the kids, or the person that's dealing with it or playing it or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've done a lot of thinking about this subject, and one of the things that I kind of
the boss, you're crazy.
What?
The boss just up there giggling.
Maybe he's on the phone.
The spares all in the cupboard and everything.
Anyway,
I'm trying to do everything all at once. I'm talking about video games. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
Let you talk. You gotta say
it's a relaxer for me. Honestly, with everything that I do in music, going to Call of Duty and shooting a couple of rounds and playing with things that I never get to play with, it's kind of fun for a bit. That's just a mental thing on like stress relief and stuff for certain people if you want to play certain games. I'm an adventurist too, so I play a lot of games like Uncharted and stuff like that, where it's going through adventures. There's not only just violent games in there, and there's some games that are extremely violent, but in a world that we live in right now, it's basically, I look at a lot of the games as training these kids for what's going to happen when the world goes crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you got a point, Despair, because, it can be like relieving, when you had a crazy day and you get on Grand Theft Auto and you start shooting people, it feels good. And that's crazy to say, but it releases tension. You're like, man, I just blew that guy's head off. Yeah.
But I'll tell you this right now, though. video game has made a lot of money for a lot of artists.
Yes, it really has. It's become another avenue of revenue, major revenue.
And a lot of actors too, because they get
Yeah.
to play the voice of a lot of these characters.
Yeah.
So kids are working when they're not being physically seen.
Yeah. For instance, COVID. With everything going on with COVID, this is still generating revenue for the industry. You know, whereas how much, I wonder how, I'm going to look that up. How much percentage of the actual entertainment industry, the gaming industry,
Wow.
generates revenue for? I mean,
Yeah,
that's something to look up.
I think I heard it was bigger than the movie industry, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow, that's crazy.
Because if you look at how many games, and then this is the thing, they're updated all the time. So the music is updated. Everything is updated. So it's not like just watching a movie once and you're hearing the soundtrack. Like Grand Theft Auto, they have how many different radio stations on there? Right? And then you got all these things being played on there and everybody's listening. And then you got old school all the way to new school music is being played on.
Yeah. You got reggaeton, Latino music, all of that.
Reggae, everything.
Jamaican music, all the way from Barbados.
It's just
The boss is like,
Well, you know what gets me is that I see these kids, these small kids, got these video games. They can't even talk, but they know how to maneuver in it.
okay. And how many adults right now don't even know how to use a tablet, but these kids
We don't
can
even
use
know
it.
they know how to use it, and they can't even speak. Their little hand is just going across. They're not even 9 months and they know what to do. Like how did that happen?
Because of technology. Think about it. When we were growing up and we were playing with computers and video games, our parents thought we were crazy at one point.
but
Once video games increased, things changed. Especially with now you got my son sits there and makes beats on his phone. He has a program, it's a game that teaches him how to play patterns and make beats.
Yeah, and you know what? It's just it's kind of crazy because it's sad to say that the gaming industry now is starting to have more influence on our kids than the educational system. And they're it's like, to a sense, they have educational games. Yeah, they do. They have a lot of games that are built around education, built around teaching you different aspects of life, things of that nature. But the majority of games that is put out here are games consumed with action, death, violence, gore, just different things of that nature.
Have you noticed when you said this earlier, kids don't know how to read maps? I beg to differ, because on these games, there's nothing but maps.
But in the game, but in the game,
maps about different parts of the world, different parts of different things.
Yeah, but in the game though, it's different because they don't tell you what's north, south, east, and west.
Yes, they do.
In Grand Theft Auto, they don't say go west, go east, go north. They have an outline that shows you the direction.
No, there's a compass. That's a compass.
Yeah, but you gotta come on, Despair. Let's keep it real. The kids aren't looking at the compass.
Yo, you know how many kids can maneuver Grand Theft Auto a lot better than I can?
They're not looking at when you go into a classroom, right? And you ask kids, okay, you break out a map and you say, point, or better yet, okay, get into a car and break out a map and tell a kid to drive you to Chicago from Canada. How are you going to get there? Do you think they can show you? Majority, not yours. I'm talking about the majority of kids.
If it depends on the parents and it depends on the household. It really does.
Okay, but the majority of kids today, I'm not talking about a hypothetical depending upon scenario. I'm talking about numbers and facts. I can Google it, right? I Googled this. That's
Okay.
what got me on the subject, right?
How many? Okay, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna
And you was on the computer
I'll put it to
too.
you like this. Okay, I'll put it like this. My grandson is 3 years old and speaks 3 different languages,
But
and he cooks for himself at 3 years old.
I just think that if we're gonna do it, let's at least have more educational games.
Yeah, but there is. It's just you got to go and put it there in front of their face. If you're just sitting there giving them
But
games,
they're
like,
not going to take it. And there's
Yes,
a
they do.
reason because of that.
Bro,
It brings no type of like
do you know how many
adrenaline
games?
and action to their lives.
Do you know how many of these games are educating, but nobody really takes the mind to look at it because you're not really looking at it that way. You're looking at it as a game, especially like a game like Uncharted. You're going into different tombs, King Tut's tombs, and all these different things, and learning about that.
Right, and I get what you're saying, and you know what, I agree to an extent, but kids are not looking at it that way. They're looking. You got to think of the mind of a child.
Yes, I do.
Okay, they're looking at it like, man, I'm gonna take this gun and I'm gonna go shoot Joe Schmo. And look, I am thinking of the mind of a child. No, you gotta really think like, okay, these kids, they don't even know. How are they gonna know if they don't know in the first place what's north, east, west, south, and you showing them a compass on a game, but they don't even know the concept of it yet because they haven't been taught. But yet they know to go that direction because that highlight in the game is showing them to go that direction.
Because there's
And that's what I'm saying. It's not telling them go north and then the highlight is going that way. That would be different.
Well, some of the newer games are like that now because they have GPS in it. Some of the older games did have to go with a compass in certain things.
Well, besides the compass, I'm talking about games in general.
You know how much things I've learned from games that I never thought that I've learned in life? Like,
I mean, despair though. I mean, come on.
No, I'm not joking. I'm not joking at all. I'm not joking. Like, I'll tell you this straight up. When DJ Hero came out, look at how many DJs came out for that game. Honestly, producers and DJs came off of that game. When how many people know how to pack cars properly because of Tetris?
What?
I don't, because I don't even play these games.
You never played Tetris in your life.
Yeah, it's a good point though. It's a good point.
You know, like in patterns and numbers, everything is like the same thing in games. Back when we think about Atari, when we used to watch a paddle go ping, 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 ping. What was that? What kind of fun was that? Just to watch a ball go back and forth over and over. And then watching the games evolve now to when guys got into, I know a lot of you football players football junkies love Tecmo Bowl and all that stuff that came out. Because I used to watch guys set up stats in their house on their on their games when they were playing that stuff. Street Fighter became a craze because everybody learned how to. A lot of people jumped into martial arts because of Street Fighter and Tekken and certain things. Boxing with Mike Tyson. Boxing with Mike Tyson made his career go a lot bigger with him and stuff. Wu-Tang having a video game.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, how are these applicable to life?
Look at 50 Cent's video game. It was one of the most violent video games. Bulletproof, bro. It was called.
No, I'm just saying, but how do you apply these skills to life? Like getting a job. What I'm saying is, I can't go to a Fortune 500 company and say, hey, I know how to pity pat a ball back and forth. So hire. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to be a smart butt. I'm just saying the application. I get what you're saying, Despair, and you know what? I agree with it to a certain extent. I'm just saying that, the application. How can you apply these skills that these games are? They're teaching you nursery rhyme level skills that kids really should already know.
What about virtual reality? What about virtual reality? It's teaching you how to cook now. It's teaching you how to build. It's teaching you how to drive.
Virtual reality is teaching you different things. Yes, it is. But like I said earlier, the majority of the games of today are built on a lot of disruptive things.
Mhm.
And you have to agree with that. It's built on a
Definitely.
lot of disruptive stuff. Why don't we have more educational games? And
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. More
there
things
is,
that
but
we
nobody's
can
looking for them.
apply in life.
There is. Nobody's looking for them. And yet
Why
that's
is that? No.
okay.
Why
You know
is
how much
that? Why
positive
is it
music
that
is out
people
there?
aren't looking for them?
I'll give
Because
you a
they've
perfect
been
example.
taught through
No.
society and through the games that, hey, that's not cool. This over here is cool. Go over here and blow up some stuff on Grand Theft Auto, or go over here and get a dance from this stripper, in this
Okay.
game.
So
And,
you just
I'm
described
just being
no.
honest.
You just described a Rick Ross video.
And I also just described reality of what's happening in the games.
Right,
Look,
but
you're
you
right,
just
though. That is
described
a Rick Ross video.
but you just described a Pop Smoke video, a Rick Ross video, an NWA video. Can we keep going?
But yeah, you know what? And
Well,
guess what's
obviously,
happening? Where did they get those concepts from?
Those videos.
Point taken.
yeah.
So for
And
us
when they
to
get the
change the games,
concepts from the videos for the videos, and then the videos are shown, in turn, those videos have a long-lasting effect on the minds of those watching those videos, because now they want to be like these people that they see in these videos with these rented chains that are $500,000 that they don't that they don't know that ain't the artist. You know what I mean? And all this other stuff. And they want to be like these people that are just made up, you know. By the way, that wasn't mobbed up water. But the thing about it is that that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
All I'm saying is that, hey, we should pay more attention to what our kids are getting and what they're buying and how it's affecting their psyche.
Well, you got to think about it too. Like you could watch Walking Dead, and now you can play Walking Dead. You don't think that's prepping us for what the world's going into?
No, I think that that's showing us reality. No,
You answer
seriously,
that
listen.
question. You answer that one.
No, but seriously, I think that that's prepping us for reality of today, because today there is Walking Dead. People that take heroin and all of that other crap, they're walking around. Literally, you go down Chicago Avenue in Chicago and you will see the Walking Dead. Like they're standing there and they're nodding off in the middle of the street. Literally, cars are coming and they're standing there nodding off in the middle of the street.
Yeah, that's everywhere.
Thank you. So all it is telling us reality of today.
So
You
what do
know,
you think Grand Theft Auto is, and everything else is doing?
Grand Theft Auto is a reality of today. Yes, it is.
So
But
chill. Chill. Given all this, what do you think the solution is?
I think the solution is we should become more as parents, because the companies aren't going to do it. They're not going to turn around and mess up their money. Okay. So to say that we should have them censorize it and all that other crap or whatever, because they'll find a way around. At home is where it starts. And at home is where the parents need to pay closer attention to what their kids are watching or what they're doing. Look at the behavior pattern of their kids, all of that. Because now we're getting into a world where kids aren't listening. They're shooting each other up like it's cool. All sorts of stuff is going on, and it's stemming right back to what we're doing every day, playing these games, watching these videos, all this stuff that we're seeing. All of that stems from something else.
Chill. Yeah, just that makes sense. But it's like you've got, like in the old days before TV, before radio, before computers, games, the kid spent most of his time with the parents or in the neighborhood. And then there was a time even they didn't have schools, public schools. So, at that time, the parents could really shape, the life of the kid. But nowadays, it's like the parents have to compete.
Yeah, it depends.
TV, with the computer and the video games. And of course, the kids themselves are under the peer pressure from their friends and from what they hear with, at school and stuff like that. So, I mean, I totally, that's absolutely right what you're saying, but it's just seems so difficult given, the environment that kids and families have to live in these days.
Yeah, and you're right. It ain't gonna be easy, but that don't mean it can't be done. There's different ways to go about it. And it all starts with our leadership of our world, not just our countries, but of our world. If our world came together and they made certain things, if they made certain laws or certain things where it's not violating our rights as citizens, but yet it's helping to improve the lifestyle of our peoples, walking the earth. I mean, just like you said, back in the day, we didn't have TV, we didn't have this, we didn't have that, right? Well, back in the day, we didn't have the kids killing each other either. We didn't have all of these crazy things going on back then. Why? Because that goes to show you the effect of the video games, the videos, things of that nature that's going on.
So explain when people were doing this before the video game started.
Well, people weren't killing each other off despair.
Yes, they were.
Today, like they were back then. I'm talking about before TV despair. Video games weren't even thought of. Video games went around until like the 80s.
Video games. I'm saying people were killing each other off. Period.
People were killing each other off since the beginning of time. You know what I mean. Quit trying to be anal. You know what I mean.
What's most of the video games based off? Those things. What's movies based off? Those things. So it's society just putting that stuff and making it reality by putting it in a video game.
I have to, in a sense, I see where you're coming from, but I have to disagree because the video game is putting it in a sense of carelessness. Okay, in a sense of, and what I mean by that. You get in a car in Grand Theft Auto, you get out the car, you just go shoot somebody. For no reason at all.
Okay.
For no reason at all. Okay? You shoot somebody, and then there's an alert, right? The cops come, right? The stars come up, right? Now, the video game is telling the kid, okay, if you shoot somebody, the cops are going to come, right? But then you can turn around and shoot the cops.
Yeah.
And you can start blowing up the cops.
Yeah.
Right? So in turn, I mean, and this has actually happened.
Okay.
Where people have went and they have started racing around the city, shooting at cops, blowing up cops, and doing all sorts of stuff where in the past, before the video games, it was not as common. It wasn't a thing for people to go around shooting up folks and stuff. Yeah, they did drugs, because in the 60s, they brought them over and it was a thing. It was a new thing in the 70s, the 80s, all of that. But they weren't going around killing each other until the 80s, the late 70s, where it became wars on the streets because of the drugs.
Right. And then they put that in the video game and make you simulate it and do it.
Right. But the thing about it is, why make it into a video game?
Why not? You're going to put it in your music.
Because
why not put it in
then you're putting it into the generations, the newer generation's head, that this is the way it is, and this is the thing.
But music did the same thing, and so did TV.
And that's why music is just as bad, and so is TV.
So we're going to talk about that tomorrow?
We'll talk about that tomorrow. Yeah.
We gotta wrap it up now.
But hey, I just want to say that remember when you got your kids watching those games and you're seeing them and they're all into it, their eyes are buck, and you look at the video game and there's a guy sitting there stuffing something up his nose, you need to grab that kid, shake him a little bit, make sure the cops aren't around, grab him, shake him a little bit, and say, hey, let's talk it out.
It's about the time to talk it out.
Let's talk, let's talk.
It's time to talk it out. It's time to talk it out.